All right, so thanks for coming into another video. As you can probably see, the car's already kind of in process for stuff. So I made the decision to, while I was in the car and doing all the things, seeing how bad some of the stuff was, just to go ahead and do some stuff that I planned on doing later this year, just go ahead and do it now. So one of those things is after dark speed end link replacements. So these took all that effort to be able to get them to move just a little bit, versus the factory sway bar end links. Really sloppy. A lot of play, which can be great for a street car, but as you start driving faster and faster, needing more from your suspension and your sway bar, it becomes less good. The other thing that I'm going to do at the same time is go with these. So these stock lowering bolts on the car that set your ride height, being that we have a Traverse leaf spring on this car. All it is a mounting pad with a hex head on top. So I've already got the rear apart, as you can see. Rear lowering bolt, and then the new lowering bolt. So basically it's just shorter, so it allows you to be able to, the highest that you can go is lower than what the factory bolts will do. I haven't had any rubbing on factory size or factory height, but then again, I'm also going to a taller tire with a 315 square. Yeah, the front was already done from the suspension bushing and so forth. So now I got to take everything back apart to be able to get this out of the front lower control arm. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and again do the passenger side off camera, try to learn, and then I'll go ahead and go to the rear. But as I get this off, this is really just what we're looking with. It moves a little bit, so it will help as suspension goes up and down. Yeah, let's go ahead and get to it.
Okay, so here we go again of taking the front suspension back apart to get these lowering bolts and end links back in. So I'm pretty sure you could do it easier than what I ended up doing, but I ended up just taking the lower suspension apart and then supporting the knuckle and the rotor, and that gave me enough space to get the end link as well as the lowering bolt out. Fortunately, none of the stuff was really lowered back underneath its own weight, so everything came out pretty easily. And there's the lower ball joint nut. I have learned to go ahead and just break any ball joint nut loose before everything else is disconnected. Alright, getting into the sway bar end link again. And I am very happy that the new end links do not have this T56 or T40 Torx bit. So that makes things a heck of a lot easier if I need to adjust or if I'm going to swap the sway bar for a stiffer one down the road. Last things that are holding the lower control arm in place are just the shock mounting bolts. I'm not sure if I would have done these before the end link or not, but ultimately it doesn't matter. I really should have had something underneath the lower control arm, just because as you will see that it dropped pretty freely as soon as the last bolt was removed. Not the end of the world, I don't think, but definitely should have had something supporting it. If I was on lower ground, it would have slammed into the floor or into the concrete. Alright, just spinning out the factory lowering bolt. And just a 10mm hex. Go clockwise or righty-tighty to advance it down, which is actually going to raise the car up. And then it's going to be the exact inverse on the way back in. Putting some anti-seize on. I'm trying to just put it on the top section to help it work into the threads. And then once it gets started and I'm able to actually get a 10mm socket on the top side, we'll add more anti-seize to the rest of those threads.
Thanks, sir.
Alright, now we're just running this all the way through, working that anti-seize onto the bolt as well as onto the threads. I'm going to run it back down one more time, and then we'll be leaving it in this all the way up position. And again, that's just going to give me more space to be able to get the control arm back attached, and then can set it where I think it might need to be for ride height. All right, now comes the last bolt that needs to be undone. And again, this is just that same Torx bit and 18mm. Or if you don't have an 18mm and you're going to be throwing away that hardware anyways, you can use a 3/4 inch ratcheting wrench. Then when you get tired of that, just go ahead and spin the stud and hold the nut in place. There we go. Once we're done, out with the old, in with the new. It does look kind of comical that everything in this part, you can easily tell what is factory and what is something that I've put in. Clean shock. You can actually see the letters on the outer tie rod. The end link is nice and shiny still, it's all new. You can even see the yellow clearly on the StopTech braided brake line going to the caliper. Again, just what I've touched versus what I haven't touched. Alright, just putting everything back together. Lower ball joint, getting that snug down. Again, this is not torqued yet. This is just getting snugged up. Most of the time I try to torque stuff off screen, that way I'm not giving out a torque spec or something else. And someone may take my video of my experience as what they should do and might mess up their car. But pretty straightforward stuff. Lower shock bolts are going in now. And I'm still unsure why I don't just get a 3-inch extension on some of these things. It would make things a lot easier, but I guess I'm just stubborn or too lazy to go get one out of the toolbox. believe everything is now going to be snugged up and complete. I'll need to put the wheel speed sensor back on and try to set my guess of ride height. I have no idea what it needs to be. I'll find that out once I get all the tires on and go from there. My reference point between left and right was just trying to have, when this 10mm ratcheting wrench was on top of that bolt, it basically get flush with the top of it, with the wrench and the bolt head. It's a good enough starting position. Alright, well then, couldn't resist. I still have all the soap that the tire shop used to mount this tire. Still on the rim and on the tire, but I really wanted to see what it would look like. And I know my alignment is not even close, so I wasn't going to go ahead and try to articulate the wheel lock to lock to see what it is. I just wanted to get a quick.
All right, and that's the front end back together. All I need to do is just retorque everything after I broke stuff loose. If you're doing this on your own, not having just had the car torn apart, getting that lower ball joint off to pivot the lower control arm out of the way. Sorry, a little Grom driving by. That might be a little bit harder to get the lower ball joint out. I fortunately didn't have any issues, so I supported the brake rotor, allowing the ball joint to fall through. I was expecting to have to actually work it a little bit, but it fell clean through. So yeah, it worked out well for me. And I'll give you give you a visual kind of what I'm replacing now. Now that I got it all off. All right, so excuse the dirty workbench, but you can kind of see how each of these factory lowering bolts, one, they're not really having much rubber life left, but every bit of them, this one's really bad. Yeah, so again, I think as suspension is going up and down and whatnot, I think that's causing all this to start shifting and getting off-centered. And then yeah, the sway bar end links are pretty sloppy, but yeah, that's front end. The rear is already done as well. So there we go, and there we go. I'm not gonna tighten up the rears just yet, just because I gotta put the control arms back on, and yeah, that's getting done by another shop. That's a different story for a different video.